નમસ્કાર, હું આદર્શ છું. વેલકમ ટુ આદર્શ એજ્યુકેશન સોસાયટી.
Dear student, today we have to learn in standard 10 subject social science chapter number 16. The name of the chapter is Economic Liberalization and Globalization. When India became independent in 1947, what they have to given the dear children? They have to given that when India became independence in 1947, our government accept the path of planning to achieve the speedy economic development. What that our government accept to path of planning to achieve the speedy economic development. It took over the charge of achieve the speedy economic development by implementing the 5-year plan. Dear children, what happened that after the independence, the government was implementing the speedy economic development by 5-year plan, one after the another. First, they have to given say that regarding with monetary policy. What monetary policy? After given about the fiscal policy and industrial policy. It means these three policy was implemented by the government. First, they have to given about the monetary policy. It is known as a Modrik Niti. What was the meaning of monetary policy? Monetary policy, it means that control either the interest rate or payable on very short term borrowing or the money supply after the targeting the inflation, that is known as a monetary policy. Second one is regarding with the fiscal policy. Second one is a fiscal policy. It means the Rajkoshya Niti. Fiscal policy is used by government regarding with to revenue collection and expenditure to influence a country's economic government revenue and explanation to influence of macroeconomic development as a result of the Great Depression. It is known as a fiscal policy. And third one is a industrial policy have been announced for this. Although many of these plans were completed and success was not attained in achieving the economic development in true sense. What happened there? After the independence, government implement the 5-year plan, after monetary policy, fiscal policy, industrial policy, but whatever we need for achieving the economic development as a true sense, we cannot complete by implementing these plans. That's why hereby government investigate the causes of failure and determine to give the new form of the different economic policy. That's why government studied about the failure of their policy and government starting one kind of the different economic policy in order to rectify the error done in the past. It means whatever the error was happened in the past, that error was rectified by the government to implement the new policy. In this regard, the industrial policy of 1991, such as economic reform, were implemented which could strengthen the economic development. That's why what happened that in 1991 of the industrial policy, the government starting the strengthening of economic development, and this policy is about LPG liberalization, privatization, and globalization. This is the most important. In which year this policy, industrial policy, was implemented by government? In 1991. And which three main points are there? One is a liberalization, second one is a privatization, and third one is a globalization. Now dear children, first they have to given about the information of economic liberalization. Now, economic liberalization, the government gradually reduced the restricted and control imposed on private sector and encouraged the economic development. What was the meaning of economic liberalization? Economic liberalization, it means government reduced the restriction and control on imposed on private sector. It means the government encouragement given to the private sector for the economic development. This is known as economic liberalization. It is known as economic liberalization. Main economic reform related to liberalization which were made the earlier period were as follow. Now following are the points They have to given about the economic liberalization first. There were the reservation for 18 industry. It means they have given about the reservation for how many industry? For 18 industry. For the industry of other than them, compulsion to take the government permission was eliminated. In the previous, what happened that you have to take the compulsory permission from the government, but now new policy government permission was eliminated. It means दूर करना, निकाल देना. Second one, area other than railway, atomic energy, defense were open for the private sector. What happened that in previous time all the sector under the control of the government, but now today other than railway, atomic energy, defense sector, this whole sector was open for the private sector. After tradition of compulsory registration for industry was cancelled. On previous time what happened there, you have to do the government procedure for compulsory registration, but now in the new industrial policy in 1991, now the tradition of compulsory registration of industry was cancelled. After the provision to take the government permission for setting up industry we do not cause the pollution and are not hazardous for environment was cancelled. In the previous time what happened there, strict rules and regulation for environment as well as for the industry, but in new law what the government take the provision as well as given the permission to the industry that do not cause the any kind of the pollution or not hazardous. Hazardous means khatarnak for the environment was cancelled. After they have to given about the advantages of the liberalization. As a result of liberalization, private sector has got an opportunity to make the unconstrained development which lead to increase in production. Now what happened there? Due to the economic liberalization policy, now the private sector got a opportunity to make a more unconstrained, it means unconstrained development, it means continued development done by the private sector as well as they have to increase the production. Second, because of accepting the policy of liberalization, global trade started and getting an impute and there has been increase in the global trade. Now what happened? Due to implementing the economic liberalization policy, now the global trade started and getting an impute. What was the meaning of impute? Impute, it means protsan dena, it means government giving the more courage, encouragement to the private sector, and also they are now doing the trade with the global market and also they have to increase the trade in the global market. After, because of the increasing the foreign trade, there has been increase in the reserve of the foreign exchange. Now what happened that here the international trade was started and that's why increase in foreign trade, and that is the benefit for the our nation. Next one, international infrastructure facility increased due to liberalization. What happened that in liberalization we know that here the government rules and regulation of the private sector are to be encouraged, and that's why what happened that here the infrastructure of the international facility are given due to the liberalization. After the disadvantages of liberalization, in spite of decrease in restriction, monopoly could not be the check. Now what happened there? Here the restriction of the government was decreased, that's why the government monopoly could not be the here check, that's why there is a chances of private sector monopoly. Second, as a focus has only been paid on industrial sector, India has remained the backward in development in agriculture field. Now what happened there? In this industrial policy of 1991 in liberalization, now what happened that government only focus on industrial sector, and we all know very well that Indian population more than 60% are dependent on agriculture sector. That's why here government not try to concentrate as well as the development for the agriculture field, only government focus on industrial sector. After, there has been increase in disparity of income due to this policy. What happened there? Here are chances of disparity of income. Disparity, it means asamanta. Now what happened there? Poor become poorer and richer become richer. That's why there is a chances of disparity of income due to this policy. Next one, because of increase in import and decrease in export, foreign debt has increased. Now what happened here? Due to this policy, what happened that import was increasing and the export was decreasing. Now what was the meaning of import? Import, it means the our nation was uh, our nation import the goods from the other nation. It is known as a importer. It means we are purchasing the goods from the other nation. Export, it means our nation supply the goods to the other nation. It is known as a export. Here what happened that India import is more and the Indian export is decreased. That's why what happened that foreign debt has increased.
Thank you for joining us.